you got to realize that whatever you're doing, you're competing with somebody. What is it that gives you an advantage over your competition? Whatever you're good at, try to be great at it. And if you're great at it, good things will happen.
Maverick Podcast.
I'm far from average. That's why I had to come sit down and chop it up with DJ Maverick. They know my name from coast to coast and even in Dallas. I use my talent when I'm faced with a challenge. Gratitude strength is my magnet. Close your eyes and imagine. If you can see it in your mind, then you can have it.
Maverick Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Maverick. Today we have another rock star in the building. We have an entrepreneur, content creator, and also just a creative mind in general, the one and only Jaquelyn Segura. Welcome to the podcast.
Can I give myself a little after
Absolutely.
all that kind of intro?
Yeah, I know, right? For the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course, I am going to give you the short version of this. My name is Jaquelyn Segura. I'm also known as Jack, and I like to call myself a jack of all trades because I mean that when I say that. I am a business owner. I own a Western fashion line called Shop Segura. I am a content creator, and I am also a podcaster, just to name a few things. So very creative, but I would say dabbling into a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I would say that we share a lot of things in common. It sounds like you're a big dreamer. I'm a big dreamer. I'm a big risk taker. You are too. So when I was checking out Shop Segura, to me, I love the name because Segura has like a double meaning, right? Like Segura, confident, right? So when you were coming up with Shop Segura, was that like, were you mindful of that? You're like, okay, I'm going to do this and it's going to be for confidence building as well.
Yes. I didn't know the power that my last name had until I was, until just recently when I started the brand. But aside from it being my legal last name, and so what I'm meaning confident, Shop Segura is a brand that when women shop, maybe, we'll expand in the future, but when women are shopping with me, they are feeling confident and feeling good because I'm a firm believer in look good, feel good. So that is just a little behind the name, but the fact that it was my last name, I was like, you know what? I think this might work.
Yeah. Was there ever another name or was that like the name out the gate? It was always Segura.
No, I always liked putting a play on words when it came to my last name. I never thought that I would actually use it as a business.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really where it was always that. It was always that because growing up, it was always, ¿Estás segura? Or what's your last name? Segura?
Mm-hmm.
So it was something that until this day, I'll never
So
hear
you always
enough.
heard all those cheesy jokes.
Oh
And
my
you're like,
goodness. I
Segura
could write you a
again.
book. I think it's funny, but I'm like, it's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah. We were talking before we started recording the pod that I also noticed that not only are you the founder, but you're also like the model, right? Like you're
Yeah.
also like in all the pictures and stuff like that. Like what made you want to do that? Or you're just like, hey, this is my brand. I want to be more authentic. Like what drove you to make that decision?
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, I didn't have much of a choice when it came to it at the very beginning.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a one-man band. I
Yeah.
do the photos. I mean, well, I have actually my sister who helps me with the photos, but when it came down to most of the photography, the designing, the marketing, the accounts, you name it, shipping, everything, I do it myself. So I didn't see it as I'm very respectful of other people's time. And when you're starting a brand, you have a lot of investing to do. So at the moment, I was like, I really don't have another option. I have to do it on myself because I didn't want to also, burden people with just because doing this takes a lot of time and a lot of
Yeah.
energy. And I was just like, I could do it. I can figure it out on my own. And honestly, I've always loved doing it. So I was just like, let's take it and run. Let's take
That
it
was
and
my next question because it's almost like an art form in itself, right? Like when you go take pictures and you're on a photo shoot, you want to make sure it's a vibe, right? Like you want to be
yeah.
confident, you want to nail those poses. Were you just a natural at doing that? Because I look like a geek on every single picture that I always take. So how did you go about that? It was just like in you naturally?
I want to say I never had any professional training, as
Mhm.
a little girl, I would always love watching movies and seeing pictures and just all that time that I spent in front of, a camera when we would sit down and record ourselves with those old
Yeah.
little handheld cameras. You know which ones I'm talking about.
Hmm.
That I've always been a fan of being in front of the camera. So yeah, I will say it came with practice, but it wasn't something that I was in, modeling school or I was a dancer or anything like that. I have no
Yeah.
background in that professionally whatsoever. So yeah, I just and I think also having people around you who make you feel good also
Hmm.
really shows in the camera as well. But I wish I could tell you that I was, you know, in front of camera since I was 3, but that's just I would be lying to you.
Yeah, but that just goes to show you, right? Like when you're building a business, like you have to figure it out as you go, right? So
Yes.
I'm sure that there was a lot of stumbling blocks, there was a lot of hurdles that you had to cross and just figure it out, right? So how did you go about that? Did you have anybody that you could reach out to? Or were you like YouTube University? I mean, I'm a big fan of like, hey, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to video edit. YouTube, let's check it out.
Yes, I graduated with honors in YouTube University.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I did go to college and I did the whole thing. But when it came down to running a business, they don't really, I feel like there's no really
There's no
set up,
rules. I mean,
there's
if you
no
think
rules when
about
it
it,
comes
right?
to it. No,
Yeah.
because I do come from a family of entrepreneurs. But when I say that, I mean, my family owned like a carniceria and a
Okay.
Mexican restaurant. So that's the kind of entrepreneurship that I am familiar with. So
Yeah.
when it came down to running a business, I had an idea, but no one ever told me how to do fashion. No one ever
Mhm.
told me how to run social media, how to market. This was all brand new. My family was running businesses like, in the 70s and the 80s. So doing it now in 2012, it's a completely different game.
Mhm.
So I was just around it, but honestly, it was a lot of trial and error and figuring it out along the way. I mean, when I started the business, I would be lying to you if I told you I knew what I was doing because I didn't. But it was one of those moments where I was like, if I wait till I'm ready, it's never going to happen. So let's just
Right.
go and figure it out and you know, the best is yet to come. So
Yeah. So pretend you're on Shark Tank right now. I want you to pitch Shop Segura to me, right? So tell me about the mood board. Tell me about the vibe. Tell me about your target audience. Tell me about Shop Segura and sell it to me right now.
yeah, so Shop Segura is Western fashion for the modern cowgirl. Because as a Mexican American, first generation myself, I come from a very long line of vaqueros, they call it, and Western
Hmm.
lifestyle from Mexico. But growing up here in the States, there is a difference between, an American Western or an English Western, if you will.
For
And
sure.
being exposed to both cultures, I just thought there was beauty in both. And I was like, why not tie it together? I like a little of the tradition and of, staying true to my roots, but I also like modernizing it and I like being, you know, with the trends per se. So Shop Segura is really a combination of all of that. There's no really rules or guidelines when it comes to it. It's just taking the best of both worlds and mixing them together and being confident in everything that you wear. And I think there's such beauty in Western lifestyle. Lucky for me, it's been trending this last year, with everything that's been going on. But it is a lifestyle. And I think that it's something, very acknowledgeable and recognizable for anybody. It's not just dirty ranch work. It is so much more than that. And, I think if people were more exposed to it, I think they would learn to love it. I think it could
Yeah.
be something,
I don't know
yeah.
if it's just me, but I've noticed that there's been a shift towards like maybe going back to some of those eras where everybody was wearing cowboy boots or wearing hats. And I even see the bandas, like the old school, like electro
Yeah.
bandas. It almost seems like all that stuff is coming back. What do you think about that?
I am here for it. I'm here
Yeah.
for it. Like, I am so excited, and I think, you know, my time is really here to shine because for me, it's always been a lifestyle. Always been a
Hmm.
lifestyle. I've had boots since, I was a little girl and, animals and horses and all that kind of stuff has just been around me. But now seeing it in the limelight and seeing it in front of the camera, I'm
Yeah.
just I'm happy because I think Western holds a lot of culture and a lot of tradition that often goes missed in like mainstream media. There's a lot of morals and values that go behind it. There's so much to it that I'm just like, I'm here for it. I love seeing a little bit of the vintage, ties into modern wear now. And I think that's where Shop Segura really just shines because it's taking all of that, and putting it in one spot. So I'm here for it. Are you a big Western fan or
You
at
know,
all?
I go back and forth. I definitely have my cowboy boots, my tejana, everything.
Yeah.
Like I have the big buckles, everything. So
Yes.
I definitely grew up with that, but it almost seems like there for a while, like it wasn't the wave, right? But
Yeah.
now I see it, like even with the festivals, you see it with like the Besame Festival. The other day on Pepe's office, he had the Banda R15. So all
Yes.
that electro banda, all that is coming back. So I'm happy. Maybe I can bust out all that stuff again. And I think it's cool, but I have to ask you, are you team Electrobanda or team Duranguense? It's tough, right?
Oh man, it really just depends on my day. But you know what? I remember when Duranguense was like a thing, but
Mhm.
my heart, I'm a banda girl through and
Same,
through.
same.
I'm a banda girl through and through, and that is such a big influence on just my lifestyle. I love it. I love it, and
Yeah.
I think it's so much fun. So I'm like, let's showcase it. Let's do a little something. I've got a few pieces with some like banda machos fringe and stuff like that. I'm trying to incorporate it, but like in a modern way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I love
So
that. I definitely have noticed that that's been like kind of the shift. So it almost seems
mm,
like you're hitting that wave at the perfect time and you're able to
yeah.
incorporate some of that. So a lot of people might say Western wear, you might be boxing yourself, right? But I think you know better than anybody else, being authentic and being true to yourself is really what's important. I see a lot of brands right now, people don't want to buy from brands, right? Like
Mhm.
not even follow brands on social media because it doesn't seem authentic and there's no connection, right? So
Right.
I think you being the face of Shop Segura is also critical for that. What are your thoughts on that? Like running a personal brand versus just running like a brand account, just a general brand account.
I think it all coincides some way, somehow. But I'm with you. I tell everybody now, Shop Segura is the name. And like, for
Mhm.
example, the socials that I have are a catalog for what I sell. But truly, all the sales come from me, from who I am and what I like and what I like to share with people. Oh, anytime I buy from a brand, it's not because I like, sometimes it is because I like the brand, and I like their product and I like what they do. But for even small business owners, it's really about the person behind it and the intention. People are buying from a person,
Yeah,
not from a brand. So I think it's really important to have some alignment with your brand and your personal brand, and especially if you're on social media. But your presence is very important when it comes to putting anything out there, marketing anything, putting anything online, or marketing your business. Because people really
yeah.
look at who you are
For sure,
instead.
and I think, like, no matter what you're doing, storytelling is, like, part of it, regardless of what you're doing, and I noticed that with your brand, you're playful with the names, right? Like, some of the dresses are, like, "Not My First Rodeo," like, you're playing with, like, even the names and stuff like that, so how do you go about that? It's like, "Okay, this is our culture. This is, like, when you go to Shop Segura, this is the vibe, and we're gonna make it a whole package." Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, and I'm so glad that you described it that way because that's precisely what I go for when it comes to marketing.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I do feel like it's a little all over the place because that's just how I am. Sometimes I'll have my mind runs in Spanglish. So it's like
Mhm.
sometimes I'll
Same.
have names that are yeah, sometimes I'll have names that are like, very this ain't my first rodeo. Um, like for example, when I was naming that dress or when I was designing, the idea of that dress, I was like, I want it to be fun. I want it to be playful. What do
Mhm.
you think of when you think of this ain't my first rodeo? You think of
Means I'm confident, right? Like, I'm here
confident, I'm
for
having
it, like, I'm
fun,
not gonna
yeah,
back down, like, this is it, like, I'm here, right?
yeah. So, with the names behind the pieces, there's, like, a story behind it. There's a meaning, there's an emotion, and, I can't tell you that it's gonna be just one straight thing because it's just kind of all over the place, but
Yeah.
I like to keep it playful, I like to keep it fun, I think that's something that's always just been part of who I am, and, in a world of so much going on, I try to make it a breath of fresh air and try to just keep things light and happy. And, there's a lot of negativity already happening that it's just, if you come here, just know you're going to be all right. It's relaxing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the website, and I'm a guy, right? So when I'm describing it, please stop me if like I'm describing it wrong. But for me, it felt like it was like flirty. It felt like it was confident. It felt like you were like, secure. Like, hey, we want you to be like that it girl, right? Like that's kind of how I felt when I was shopping your brand and the voice behind your brand. To me, like all those undertones and even like the Spanglish, right? Like all that comes through in your brand.
Yes, and I'm so happy hearing you say that because I put all of this thought and idea and strategy behind it. So hearing it from, especially like a man's POV,
Like a guy, right? You're like,
I'm
if
getting
that
my
guy
message
got it,
across,
then surely they'll get it, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. No, absolutely. Because I feel like a lot of times things are pretty coded when it's like, oh, if you're, let's say, this type of person or this type of girl, you have to be this way. You can't
Yeah.
have a little bit of, and in my shoes, like a little bit of that Mexican culture, but you can't be too American. There's always, I
Mhm.
felt like there was always these rules of like, you can do this, but you can't do that. And I was just like, you know what? My lifestyle has always been kind of the brand of Shop Segura. So I was like, you can't have the best of both worlds. You can be, that, let's say, that girl, and you can go listen to Banda, and you can enjoy your roots, and you can enjoy a little bit of, that American Western culture. Like there is really no rules when it comes to this kind of stuff. So um, I just really liked showing the best of both worlds and
Yeah, I love
showing
that.
that it is possible.
Yeah, definitely. When I definitely saw that on your brand, it's all about details, 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 right?
Yes.
So hearing you talk about it is really cool to know that's
Ah,
the meaning and everything you were mindful of all that, right? So I've got a question for you. Do you think in English? Do you think in Spanish? Do you dream in English? Do you dream in Spanish? Because to me, there's definitely like two differences there.
yes, I think I would say in English and in Spanish, I dream a lot. Like honestly, it's so funny because I just not too long ago, sometimes I'll wake up, I'm dreaming in Spanish. I'm dreaming in Spanish
Same.
and a
I
lot of
always dream in Spanish.
yeah,
I don't know why. So I was gonna see if you dreamed in Spanish too. I don't know
I
why.
do. It's a real thing. And
Yeah.
that's for me when I'm like, that's when you really own the language, when you're just like, one thing is thinking and speaking and doing all these things in English. But once you start dreaming in Spanish, that is another level. But I love it. I think that there's so much beauty in like the vaquero culture and just the vaquero lifestyle that I wouldn't want it any other way. Like I love the balance and I love everything, but I will tell you this, Maverick. I I think and speak in English, but I love in Spanish. I have to
Yeah.
say. I have to.
Same. I also
Mhm.
get mad in Spanish. Cuando estoy enojado
Yes,
is
you don't want to see
Spanish.
that part.
Right? Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah,
So Cali girl, but you took a big leap of faith moving to LA recently, right? So tell me
I
about that.
did.
What drove that decision?
So I've been in Southern California for it's going to be almost 4 years now. A little past 3.5. But I'm born and raised in Northern California. And for anybody who's not from California, Northern and Southern California is like black and white. It's very
Mhm.
different. So I'm from Napa Valley, which is a little more, Western. It's a little more countryside. And I moved to LA really just because I felt like I wanted something new. I I always tell the story. People are like, "Why did you move to LA?" I wish I had a better story, but
Yeah.
the truth is I was at a point in my life where things were getting just a little repetitive. I've never been the kind of person who really enjoys that. So I was just like, "Let me try something new." I've always been the kind of person who, what's the worst that can happen? I don't like it
Mhm.
and I go back. Thankfully, I have, that system, that support system to say, if I don't like it, I'll go back. No pasa nada, as I always say. But I really just decided to take a leap of faith and I came not knowing anybody, not having really any close family or friends here. And I was just like, I'll figure it out on the way. And if I don't like it, at least I say I'll try because I feel like life is too short. to live with the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. So
Was there
that's
ever
just
a moment where you were like, okay, maybe wrong decision, maybe I need to go back? Because LA is tough, right? Like it's expensive. Everybody's there to make their dream happen, right? So you're just like another
yes.
person sharing a dream, right?
It is a rigorous playing field out here. It's a bunch of creatives. It's very
Hmm.
competitive, and it's not for the weak. I will say that it's not for the soft. But I think it's brought not the best version of me. I've unlocked so many new potentials and just strengths that I didn't know I had, but it really puts you on your feet and it kind of just it throws you into, the lions if you will, because
Yeah.
there's no sugarcoating. There was a few moments where I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And especially when I got into content creation and things like that, when things started taking off and, with content creation, some things, go really well and some things fail. And I've had a few
Hmm.
things that just didn't do as well. And I was just like, oh my God, like, do I really think I'm living a fantasy? Am I like that delusional? But, we kept through, we kept pushing. And it's brought out some of my best moments and some of my worst moments. So
Yeah. We were talking about being first generation. Sometimes
Mhm,
there's a lot of pressure because our parents are used to more traditional careers, right? And
mhm.
they've given up so much, so many sacrifices. They want you to be an engineer, they want you to be a lawyer
Mhm.
or a doctor, right? So tell me about the pressure that you faced with that. And then how did you pivot to be like, hey, this is really what I want to do for my life?
Yeah, I am the oldest of all of my siblings, the oldest of 8, and so with that, there's a lot of pressure of you gotta be the one to set the example, right?
Hmm.
I will say I've always been like a late bloomer, as I like to consider myself, because I tried doing that traditional route of graduating high school, going to a college, becoming a nurse in my
Okay.
aspect. Everyone was always like, be a nurse, or be a lawyer, be a doctor, something where it's secured, where it's
Right.
safe, and you know you're gonna have a job for the rest of your life. So at the beginning of my college career, I did all the schooling for nursing, and I hated it. I hated
Mhm.
every moment of it. I was just like, I am not a girl who is made to be in these kinds of sciences, you know?
Yeah.
And it took me a while. When I was about 26 is when I finally made the pivot. I made like a major change, if you will. And that's when I was like, you know what? I don't know anybody who is in a marketing career or who is in more of a creative field, but it's really what I enjoy doing. Let me just try it. And there was a lot of trial and error when it came down to that. I think I took a long time being scared of what other people were going to think and just taking a chance on myself. So that's what delayed the process. Because I wanted to be a good example for my siblings and for my family. And just, you're the oldest one, you're at the top of the pyramid. Everybody's
Right.
watching you. So
Right.
I was afraid of messing up. I was afraid of messing up. The whole expectation of, getting married, having a kid, having a house, and doing that timeline and that in that order. I did the complete opposite. So
Yeah.
I finally got to a point where I was like, this is my life and I know what I'm good at. So let me take a chance on it and see if this actually works for me. And that's when things just completely changed.
So how did you go about having that conversation with your family? Because they have the best intentions, right? Like they want the best
Right.
for you. They want you to be secure. They're like, hey, yeah, you could do this content creation as a plan B, but
Hmm.
nursing is going to pay the bills. Did you ever get
Right.
that
Right.
conversation? How did you go about having that conversation?
I really didn't have a conversation. I just did
No,
it. Yeah.
you just did
Yeah.
it. I like that. You're like, Segura, here we
Yeah,
go.
I was like, "You know
Yeah.
what? Let's do it." Well, because this is how it went down. When I tried to have that conversation the very first few times, it didn't go well. It was,
Mhm.
"What are you doing? What are you thinking? No, that's not what you need to do." It was always like a negative response. So I got to the point where I was like, "You know what? I'm not gonna ask anybody to do what I wanna do." And because quite frankly, I mean, I don't my family doesn't come from a very they don't tap into the creative side. like that when it comes to social media and content. And let's be honest, this is all kind of new for
It's
everybody.
new.
This hasn't been around very long. So um, that's when I just started posting. And honestly, my whole social media career started with posting for fun and just kind of having it as my creative outlet when I was, trying to be a nurse, working my 9 to 5 and doing what I was supposed to be told. This was my outlet of just what I enjoyed doing. So the conversation, I wish I could tell you that we had one, but it came to the point where I was just like, I am going to take my own lead on this.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. So I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But I think it's super important, right? Like first gen, like us, I think us doing content creation, putting ourselves out there, it sets like a wonderful example for other kids growing up, and they can see almost a blueprint of like, hey, this person did it. They created their own brand. Maybe I can do it too. And it makes them like dream outside the box, right? Because as
Yes.
a kid, I never knew that entrepreneurship was a thing. Now it's cool to be an entrepreneur. Everybody's like, I'm my own boss. I want to work my own hours and control everything. Before, like, it wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur.
Right. And I think beforehand, you didn't have like all this. I mean, I grew up in the era where the internet wasn't always around. We didn't have smartphones
Right.
when I was younger. So there were so many options that I wasn't exposed to. But I think I agree with you. I agree. I don't think that anybody can write a rule book of how it's supposed to be and how it's going to play out because everybody has a different story. Everybody has
Mhm.
different circumstances. And truly, if you put your mind behind what you want to do, it is possible. The sky's the limit. So that's kind of what I did with my brand, with my content, with everything that I'm doing right now. I was just like, respectfully, I've never seen anybody kind of do it in this style, but I
Sure.
know that there's people like me because I personally know a lot of people who live kind of a life I live, but it's never been exposed. So
Yeah.
I know that there's people out there. It's just a matter of consistency and finding your audience and finding people who really resonate with what you do and taking it that way because yeah, there's no rule book when it comes to this kind of stuff. And even if somebody who has the biggest business, out there, they're not gonna be in the shoes that you have. So it's gonna be a
Definitely.
different experience.
Yeah, definitely. And you never hear about all the times that it didn't work out, right? Like the Starbucks
Mhm.
founder, like he got rejected by so many banks before he got that one bank to say yes, right? So I'm
Yes.
sure you faced a lot of rejections along the way. Tell me, like, what was the biggest hurdle when you were trying to get Shop Segura off the ground? Like, what was
Yeah.
the biggest hurdle for you?
I think trying to be something that I wasn't was the biggest hurdle because Shop Segura has been in business for 4 years now. And the last few years is when we've been actually honing in on the Western fashion, which I've had a ball doing. But when I started the brand, I tried to be completely transparent, I tried mimicking other brands that I saw because I
Yeah,
saw girls, with their aesthetic, and then some girls being very, very, very Western. And then everybody kind of had a similar style. And so I tried duplicating that. And I was like, well, if they're doing it, then that's something that I should be doing. But it was really difficult because it wasn't anything that came natural to me. I loved content creation, but I was just looking at something that I saw online and trying to replicate it. And so once I started realizing that I really had to hone in into my style and who I was, that's when things started changing. So, had I learned that earlier on, who knows where we would have been now? But
mhm,
I'm so thankful that we're on the track that we are now. But being afraid to be myself and show my authentic self is something that took me a while to get over.
okay. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think with Shop Segura, you're doing some cool stuff. I hear there's some drops coming out, right? So tell me about those drops and what's
Yeah,
the thinking behind that?
yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, we do a lot for the modern cowgirl.
Mhm.
So with this coming year, we actually have a lot of projects coming up. We're elevating the content. We're partnering with a bunch of new brands, but I really just want to accentuate like the traditional Western statement pieces and the lifestyle and incorporate it into a modern way. So Western isn't just trend. It's been around for centuries and centuries. And, thankfully, in the position that I'm at, Western has been kind of a trending topic in the last year, I would say.
For sure.
But, it's showing that this is something for some people that's never going to go out of style. It's never just going to be a trend. No matter how many years evolve, there's always going to be a way of Western to be incorporated. So that's what we're doing. We're following the trends, but kind of setting our own rules when it comes to it and just putting our own twang to it, if you will.
Love that. So
Yeah.
you were creating content, building a brand, and then you got on the radar of the guys of the Toast to Life podcast, or how did that work out?
Yes. Yeah. So, and it's funny how everything kind of leads up to this, because now that I'm a part of a Toast to Life podcast, everything that I've done in the past just kind of makes sense to where I'm at right now. But I'm a part of a Toast to Life podcast. It's me and my 3 other guy friends, 4 of us doing the podcast, and we talk about everything. There's really no limits when it comes to topics that we talk about. We do a lot of mental health. And I think the biggest idea behind a Toast to Life is having conversations that most people wouldn't have, especially on the internet, because
sure.
like we were talking earlier, social media is a lot of highlights and it's a lot of the positive things, which we love to see. But the truth of the matter is that everybody's going through something and everybody's going through struggles. Some days are good, some days are bad. So with the Toast to Life, we really try to just talk through it, because I am a firm believer that talking through it is a way to get through it. So that's just kind of what we try to get people to get on board with us is, you're not alone. We're all having our struggles. We've all been through it, and we're going to have a lot of struggles come, in the future.
I think that you bring a great, perspective, and also a great, much needed feminine energy to the podcast, right? Because it's just you and a bunch of guys, right? So tell me about that. Is it intimidating when they approached you? Like, first you were a guest, right? And then all of a sudden you're like part of the team. So how did that conversation evolve? How were they like, hey, we want you to be officially on the team?
It really just came as that. I came on as a guest to talk about what I'm talking about with you, with my shop, and just everything behind content creation. I never in a million years thought I was going to be an actual podcaster. But it's funny because when I was younger, my dream job was to be like a radio host. So it's just
Nice.
funny how things played out. But I went on with the boys. I had met them kind of at the beginning of my my journey here in LA. I went out on a girls' night out. We met, and a friend of mine recognized them from the podcast. We got to know each other. They ended up being really cool. I came on as a guest, and I truly just showed up as being my authentic self. I didn't really have anything in my back pocket. I was just like, I'm just going to show up and be who I am, and that's it. People really liked it. People really liked the traction of it. And then that's when we were like, you know what? We could really do something with this, because our friendship, our chemistry has always been organic. It's always been that way. So we all have different strengths, and we were like, let's just highlight them all, because together, we're trying to reach so many people. We're all very different.
Yeah.
But I think that's important when it comes to talking about things and having a podcast, is having different perspectives to be able to relate with the audience.
So walk me through that creative process. Let's say we have a pod coming up. Like, what's that creative process like? Is there a big group chat? Do you guys meet up? Like, are there bullet points? Like, how do you prepare for a podcast episode?
We have constant communication. We're always talking about everything. And that's kind of how we pick up the topics of what we're going to talk about. I would say about 60% of it is pretty organic and pretty authentic. 40% of it is strategy, because obviously when it comes down to even, a 10-second video on Instagram or anything like that, there is a strategy behind it. This is an actual job, for
sure.
some people who might not understand that. But, we kind of pick up what our audience likes. We are thankful, we know who our audience is and what they like to hear. So we kind of tap in on that. And then, whatever, when we're posting, if you see something that works, take it and run. Take it and run until it stops working. And then, you have to hop onto the next thing. But that's just with any content creation and social media in general. It's just throwing darts on the wall and seeing what sticks. But really, you have to pay attention to your audience.
Yeah. Are you ever worried about opening up too much, right? Like, let's say you're on the podcast, you guys like to be authentic. Like, what if all of a sudden you're talking about an ex or something like that?
Yeah.
And then we're living in cancel culture too, right? So sometimes if you're truly authentic, like sometimes you're like, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Like, do you ever worry about that?
Yes. That's one of my biggest worries that I had coming on the podcast. And just, as somebody who posts a lot online, you get to pick what people see and, what side what their perception is of you. I was afraid, and I'm not even going to lie, there's been times on the podcast where I'm like, why did I say that? Or, because it's an everlasting, skill you learn along the way. But for the most part, I've always been pretty true to what I say. Like I said, everything I say it with my chest. And I've never been somebody to, say something that I didn't mean or anything like that. A lot of thought goes into it. So there is a risk, though, because no matter what platform you're on, you're going to get canceled. There's going to be good and there's going to be bad. So you just have to have some thick skin when it comes to
and
doing
I think
something.
like you're on the podcast, maybe it feels like you're just like with a group of friends. You forget that there's microphones, you forget that there's cameras, and you guys are just like talking like you normally would, right? So I don't know, like sometimes it could be like you're talking about an ex or something like that. Like, should exes watch out? Maybe like, Taylor Swift writes a song about an ex, si no te portas bien, there's going to be a song out there.
Yeah.
Maybe like, si no te portas bien, there's going to be an episode out there dedicated to you and how you messed up, right?
All I'm saying is que me traten bonito. Que me traten bonito porque there could be a podcast.
Yeah, I love that.
Nobody is safe. Ansky.
Yeah, no, I love that. So when I saw the vibe of, the whole podcast, you guys are authentic and you guys are trying new things, right? I saw that you guys are delivering flowers for Valentine's Day. You got a big collab coming up with Ticketmaster. Tell me about some of those projects that are coming out of the podcast.
Yeah. So for the flower shop, not sure if when we post this, but we like to work with local businesses and local communities. So the flower shop that we're working with is called Andy's Florist. It's out in Torrance, California. And it is a Latina owned business. So as much as we love creating content, we love interacting with our viewers and our audience, like in real life. So this was an opportunity that came to us, a business who, on Valentine's Day is probably, the busiest time of the year. Why not work together, collaborate on something, show people, what this is about? Because it's a beautiful business. They make the most gorgeous arrangements. And it's an opportunity for us to actually interact because, the internet is one thing, but, seeing people in person is another thing. So we take as many opportunities like that as possible where we can put ourselves there and really just talk physically to people. I think it's super important. With Ticketmaster, that is a super exciting project that we're working on. We just finished off a last half of the NFL.
Amazing.
And as a girl in sports, I've learned so much about it. But now we're working with the NBA. So basically what that's happening is it's a new project that we've come across. And our manager, who is fantastic, her name is Joanna, she has really connected as she saw the potential that we had and matched us up with Ticketmaster. And I think all of us play a super important role when it comes to this campaign because it wouldn't be a Toast to Life the way it is without everybody on the team. So it's a huge opportunity for us. And, with a Toast to Life and with content creation, when you start doing it, everyone sees all the positives and all the monetary opportunities and the paid campaigns. But what's not talked about a lot is that like you're posting a lot of things for free when you're first starting out and learning along the way. And once you start getting your traction, then that's great. But it's like building a business. Building a social media page is like building a business.
Yeah. You know what drives me crazy is sometimes the big brands, like they should know better, right? But I almost feel like sometimes they try to take advantage of the little guy, right? Like they're like, hey, do you mind doing a video? We're just gonna send you free product or whatever, right?
Yes.
And that's cool, but like maybe the first couple of times you're excited about it. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to build a business, that's not gonna pay the bills, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to be like picky of like, hey, this collab makes sense, this one doesn't. Like, tell me about that process. How do you go about that?
Yeah, I think there comes a certain point in any social media career when you have an engaged audience and you have your following and you know what you bring to the table. You build your community because it's all about consistency. And I think there comes a point where, making a little 30-second video takes hours. It takes
Yeah.
production, it takes time. So knowing your worth and knowing what value you can bring to any brand and negotiating, honestly, with brands, it's like anything. You have to negotiate and see kind of what it could lead to. But, you know, don't be afraid to pitch yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for X amount. And it's crazy because a lot of times I think what's overseen is just like the opportunity that's in social media. People think like, oh, well, it really didn't take me, that long to make a video. But the reach, the engagement, the
Right.
eyes, like there is so much opportunity. So when you start getting to that point of getting paid and doing campaigns and things like that, don't be afraid to shoot for the stars because you'll never know what you're capable of without asking, you know?
Yeah, because it's a grind. I mean, yeah, like they might say it's just this one video, but you have spent years creating content, making sure that you have a connection
Mhm.
with the community that you have built. And then this big brand will just like, hey, I'll give you free merch or I'll give you this free
Yeah.
product, do a quick video. And I'm talking about big brands. Like I don't want to
Mhm.
put anybody on blast, but
No,
like
I know.
I've gotten some I've gotten some deals and they're just like, hey, like we'll send you free product. Do you mind doing a video? And I'm like, come on, guys, like you should know better. Why are you even pitching it that way? I don't know. Maybe because people are excited that first couple of times, maybe you are excited to do a collab.
Yeah.
But I think that that's something that you have to, put on your business hat and make wise decisions.
Yes, because I think when it comes to building a brand, and once you start building your followers, the people who follow you and engage with your stuff is because they trust you. Because they trust
Mhm.
you and, they've built a virtual relationship with you, let's
Yeah.
say. So with that comes a lot of opportunity, like a lot of responsibility. So I also have learned that saying yes to everything is not necessary. Um, Anytime I'm working with a brand or I'm putting anything out there, I make sure that it aligns with what I do because it's really going to show when you start working with things that don't align with what you are and who you are authentically. So there's been times where I've said no and and that's okay. And that's okay. But for me, I do take my digital presence very seriously because I would never want to share anything that I personally wouldn't
Yeah,
use or
it's super
recommend.
valuable if you
Mhm.
think about it, like, how many hours each week are you in person, like,
Yeah.
speaking to everybody they're listening to on their AirPods or whatever, like, you're a voice, like, you have a valuable audience. I
Right.
always tell people, like, "Don't sell yourself short," like, your
Right.
stuff that you're creating is super valuable.
It is. And it has such a big reach that even though, you might not think that it's getting out there, or you might think it's not, a lot of views or a lot of engagement. Trust me when I say everybody's watching, everybody's watching. So,
Mhm.
yeah, don't sell yourself short.
So prior to the Ticketmaster collab, were you also like into sports or have you now have to like ramp up and like you're doing research and watching games? Like what was it like? Like were you a big sports girl or what?
I was not a big sports girl. I would be lying to
No.
you if I did. Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, I've always enjoyed major events and going to a games and things like that. But the thing is, like, obviously, this opportunity with Ticketmaster came to us, and we were just so excited. I mean, we said yes, but the thing is, when it comes to this kind of stuff, you do need research and you do need to know what you're talking about. It's not just like, oh, let me go film a little video and, throw a
Right.
ball or this, and that. There is a lot of behind the scenes. That's research, that's, creating scripts, creating a concept, getting things approved and knowing what you're talking about. Because like when it's kind of like acting, like you have to believe it. You have to know what you're talking about. And if you know what you're doing, it just comes off more confidently. It comes off more natural. So
For
before
sure.
this, I had learned a lot in the last few months of sports, but hey, I'm like, you know what? I've enjoyed every second of it. So
Yeah, be ready for heartbreak. I think like being a sports fan, like
yeah.
it'll put you through it. Like when your favorite team, like I'm a big Dallas Mavericks fan and they just traded Luca out of the blue. I don't know if you
Yes,
heard about that.
I
That broke my
did.
heart and it's like the worst trade ever. Like I'm sorry if you're a Lakers fan, but like Luca was the guy. He's like super young. He could have taken him to the championship and they're like, no,
Yes.
this guy's like overweight or whatever. He's still pulling up like 40 points a game. I don't
Yes.
care if you think he's overweight or not. He's still the guy. Like, I don't know. Are you a Lakers fan or what?
I'm gonna get canceled for this, but
Uh-oh.
I'm not a Lakers fan. As a girl from the Bay Area, I'm a Golden State
Mhm.
Warriors fan. But I
Okay.
do have
Okay.
respect for the Lakers. I
Yeah.
recognize who they are and what they are and just the culture about them. But I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. But it's funny because when we were working on our scripts, that shift with Luca had
Hmm.
just happened. So we had to rewrite our whole concept because we got to keep it up to date.
Yeah.
And
I
so
thought it
that's
was a
another big
joke. Like the
yeah, that's
news
another
broke
big
out late night and I was like, this has
I was
got to
like,
be
"What?"
a joke. Like
Yeah, so
who
that's the
decided
thing.
that this was a good thing, right?
I know.
So, yeah.
So that's another thing when it comes to like social media and trends and things like that is you have to stay on your toes. You have to stay on
Hmm.
your feet and you're moving with the trends, with the quickness, with everything. So one day it could be this, but then tomorrow it's something else. So it really is it tests you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an
That's an
important point. You have to be in tune with the culture.
yes.
So, with that being said, give me your review for the Kendrick halftime show.
Okay, well, if there's not another song in my mind other than They Not Like Us for this
Right?
entire okay.
And El
That is the
Pasito, right? You're
yes,
doing the Pasito
the
everywhere?
little dance.
Yeah. For
I
sure.
loved it. I love to see it. I love the choreography. I love the art behind it. Now knowing what I know when it comes to sports and production and things like that, I know how much time and effort went in it. And I think he did an amazing job. The fact that we're still talking about it almost a week later, I'm
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I think they know what they're doing.
What
I
about the
think people
fit? Rate the pants. Everybody's giving him a hard time because of the
oh
pants.
my
So,
goodness.
rate the
I was
fit.
like, where do I buy those? The way I was like, do I add these to Shop Segura? Because I always want to put a Western twist to it. I was
I
like,
think you
yeah,
should. I
I
think they're
think I
about to
feel
come back
yes, I know it's history repeats itself. But I
for
loved it.
sure.
I love the fits. I just think he did a fantastic job. So I always look forward to the halftime show. Always.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me about it sounds like you're about to go on the road with the pod too, right? So
Yes.
what are you looking forward to the most? Have you met fans before? Have you had like meet and greets prior to this, or is
Yeah.
this the first time you're headed to the road?
So we've been on the road before, but this next coming month, we're actually going to be in Denver, Colorado, and we're going to be in the Bay Area for at least two times. And when I tell you everybody is watching, because we've been in Atlanta, we've been, in different parts of here in California, and people stop us and they're like, "Hey, I love your podcast." I think that that's what I look forward to the most. Is
Mhm.
when people come up to us and they're like, "Hey, I really like what you say. Like, I love your podcast. I watch you guys all the time." That is a feeling that I don't think I'll ever get
It
over.
never gets old, right?
It never gets old,
Yeah.
and it's just because, you know, being behind the camera and seeing, the notifications come up on your phone, it's different because it's like, yeah, people are watching, but when they remember you on the street or in person, it's like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe what I'm doing is it's actually working." You know what I mean? And I think that that's so exciting. I'm excited to get to explore new places. Personally, I've never been to Colorado. That's not a state I've been to. So, um, there is a lot of things that I'm excited for. And just really getting to work with the boys and getting our creative juices together. And doing what we do best in different parts of the country now. So more to
Yeah.
come. Let's manifest.
No, for sure. I'm a big
Yeah.
believer in energy. So I
Yeah.
love that you're a big dreamer. You're not afraid to take a jump with not figuring everything out before you take that jump, right? Sometimes that's what being an entrepreneur is, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a little scary. It's a little scary and it's very risky. But you really have to believe in yourself and you have to love what you do, because all of this isn't going to happen if you're not passionate about what you do. So I think that's really important, is finding your niche or finding your creative outlet and expanding on that. But I mean, the thing is, like, I've learned that when you wait to be ready for something, you're never going to do it. You're never
Yeah.
going to do it. And there's you have a lot more potential in you than you think. Like, you're smarter than you think. You're stronger than you think. You just really have to put yourself out there and try. And if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, it's going to be a lesson and it's going to take you to the next step that you need to go to. So that's just kind of my thinking on everything, on behind, the content creation, the shop, the podcast. I'm like, nothing that isn't meant for me wouldn't come my way. So sometimes you just got to jump on it and fly with it.
1000%. One of the things I always like to ask the guest, if I pull up your playlist, who am I going to find on your playlist? So don't worry. This is a safe, we're not going to judge you. This is a safe place. So go ahead and tell me, who am I going to find on your playlist?
On my Spotify playlist, you're probably going to find a mix of everything. Country, Mexican music. I love jazz. I love it. When I tell you, I love it all. I have like a playlist throughout the day. You're probably going to find, a lot of Chris Stapleton. A lot of Chris Stapleton. I love him so much. Zach Top. When it comes to Mexican music, I love old traditional songs like Los Cardenales y, Tío music, as they call it.
Amazing.
But I love my 2000s R&B. So I even listen to jazz when I'm in the car sometimes, like classical jazz. So I am one of those people who music really does play a big part in my life, because I like to make my life like a movie. So I always have background noise in the background, and it just depends on my mood, and it really brings out the most creative version of me. I know it sounds like it's just music, but it's not. It's not. It really does something to me.
Yeah, I'm a big music person myself. I always have to have a soundtrack, and depending on what's going on at that time of day, the playlist changes, right?
Yes.
So if I'm having a bad day, it might be some grunge music, it might be some Nirvana, some Metallica. If I'm having a good day, it might be some cumbia, stuff like that. And then if I'm in my feels, then I'm definitely listening to that Tío music.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to like some Marco Antonio Solis or something like that, some Temerarios, stuff like that. So I get it 1000%.
Yes. I know. I've had people come into my car or look at my playlist and they're like, I'm like, don't ask. Just pick a song.
Just pick it, right? So that's a great segue about the movie, right? So if I put you on the spot, let's say I'm about to create a movie for the Jaquelyn Segura story, who's going to play you?
Who is going to play me?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Put you on the spot.
I know, because I'm thinking of all these actors. I don't know if I have a name for an actor, but I could tell you what she needs to have. I could tell you the characteristics and how she needs to be. She needs to be kind of a firecracker. Okay, she needs to be a firecracker. She needs to be creative. She needs to be a little witty. She needs to be a little fun, a little glamorous also too, but definitely would be around the name of a jack of all trades, because she can't be too a little bit of one thing. It's got to be spread out evenly. So all I know is that the character who plays Jack in Jaquelyn Segura's life has to have gone through so much, because there's going to be a lot of stories to tell.
What's your goals for the rest of the year? Because you're doing so much. I feel like sometimes, like, I don't know, we tend to spread ourselves thin. Like sometimes I try to make my parents proud so much that I go like crazy. I try to like do so much and I overwork myself to try to like make them proud. So
Yeah,
do you
I'm with
face
you.
that pressure where you're like, I'm going to do so much because they've given me so much and so many sacrifices? Do you find yourself in that situation?
I do 1000%. And I feel like that's why I put so much pressure on myself because when I do something, or let's say when I win or when I make it, like I want to bring everybody with me. I want to bring, my parents, my sisters, my siblings. I want everybody to experience what I'm experiencing. And with that, there comes a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things that need to be done. So I use that as fuel because I'm like, if I don't get it done, nobody else is going to do it for me. And I'm just going to be sitting in the same spot that I am. And respectfully, I cannot have that happen. Like, I cannot have it happen. So for the rest of the year, I I'm more of like do the work and the opportunities will come to you, and take those opportunities, because when it comes to planning a year, 5 years in advance, I've learned that truly life has its own track for you. And no matter how hard you try to plan 5 years in advance or even a year in advance, sometimes what's meant to happen is going to happen either way. And it's not going to be anything that you see coming. So for the rest of the year, I really want to dabble into these projects that I have going on and expand them and get the most out of them with my shop, with the Toast to Life, with content creation. A lot of opportunities came my way last year that I was like, I didn't even think I was going to be in front of all of this opportunity, that now I have to take this and run with it and get out of my comfort zone and start doing things the way I like to do them. So I think staying on track with that and just putting myself out there and continue my social media, I think I've gotten to the point where I found what I like and what I'm good at. So now I've established that. Let's take it and run, you know?
Perfect. Yeah.
So growing my business, growing my socials, growing with the Toast to Life, growth overall.
I want to give you the stage before we sign off. I definitely want to give you the stage. Plug in your website, social media. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere. That's one thing about me is I'm on all social media platforms, and I have to say that nobody has my name. So it's Jack Segura on all platforms, on everything. And my business is shop.segura. It's shopsegura.com. I don't think anybody's taken that name either. I hope they don't. But yeah, check it out. We have Western fashion for women, for the modern cowgirl. Maybe we'll expand to, the men's fashion this year. I
That
don't
would be
know.
cool.
That
be
would be
cool.
really cool because we've gotten a lot of requests on that. But yeah, check it out. Jack Segura, Shop Segura, a Toast to Life podcast. Once you find me, you'll find everything there. But check it out. Send me a message. I love talking to people. So I've enjoyed all of this and being able to share my story. And, for any girls out there who kind of want to do it the way I do, I mean, come along. I share everything and I tell everybody about the ride. So it's been fun. We're
Thank
growing.
you.
We're just getting started.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you for being on the podcast. I enjoyed the conversation. Don't be a stranger. Anytime that you want to hop on, we can talk about banda, we can talk about music, we can talk about sports. I feel like we have so many things in common.
Oh my goodness. The list goes on and on. Absolutely. Absolutely. I was so honored to be a part of this podcast. When you reached out, I was like, of course. And on discovering everything, we have a lot of common. So I wish you the best of luck with your podcast as well. And thank you for having me. And I'm always willing to talk about, all of this kind of stuff. So I appreciate it.
All right. There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, the super talented Jaquelyn Segura on the Maverick Podcast. In dreams, we trust.